All right, everybody, what we're going to do in this section is look at the different types of virtue. Virtue is named for the type of activity that's being done well. Right? So remember that a virtue is a good habit, it's a good act. And as we've been saying, that virtue matters not only on the outside, but also on the inside. In other words, what's driving that act? So good virtue, good habit is accompanied by not only good actions, but good intentions, and as we'll see shortly, also good emotions. There's two broad groups of good habits, what we call theological virtues and cardinal virtues. We won't be looking at theological virtues for a few months. Theological virtues are activities or acts that concern God directly. Right? So for instance, prayer would be an example of a theological virtue. It's a good habit, right, that concerns God directly. It's an activity that concerns God directly. The three theological virtues are faith, hope, and love. Okay, so I just briefly wanted to make that introduction. We will not be looking at those theological virtues for a few months. Instead, for the next few months, we'll be focused on the cardinal virtues. These are the virtues of the greatest importance. Cardinal just means exactly that, of the greatest importance, right? So you think of Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is a cardinal player on the Dodgers. He's of the greatest importance. You look at LeBron James. He is a cardinal player in the NBA. He's of the greatest importance. So when we look at, he told me to say that, but when you look at cardinal virtues, these virtues concern inner-worldly activities. So remember, theological concerns God directly. Cardinal virtues is just the stuff, the fundamental stuff, the fundamental good habits of my everyday, day-to-day life. Okay, how I'm living as a student, how I live as a son in Cranston, how I treat my grandmother, how I treat money, how I act courageously, how I tell the truth, how I don't cheat on tests, right? And so on and so on. It's the stuff, the good habits of my day-to-day life. They are of the greatest importance, and because of this, all other good habits can be put into one of these four groups. So think of these four cardinal virtues as like a filing cabinet in which we can open up the drawer of justice, the drawer of fortitude, I throw my arm out, it gets dislocated, the drawer of temperance, and the drawer of prudence. And what you can actually do is put in other good habits within those categories. So for instance, you look at the good habit of generosity, that would be a sub-virtue of justice. So that would go in the drawer of justice. I love saying the drawer of justice. You look at chastity, using sexuality well, that would go in the drawer of temperance. Patience, patiently being able to endure something, even like an illness or something like this, right? That would be very brave. So you would put that in the drawer of fortitude. Foresight, being able to sort of see how things are going to play out, that would be in the drawer of right reason and action. Good memory would fall within that drawer of prudence. So the four cardinal virtues are an umbrella in which all these other good habits, loyalty, right, humor, care, right, all these other good habits fall into one of these four categories, and that is why prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude are the fundamental virtues. So we're going to argue that the cardinal virtues are a path to the good life, that if I want to live well, I need to possess these virtues. The other thing we're going to say is that every person, if they lived 1,000 years before Jesus, 500 years after Jesus, or they're living now, every person has access to the cardinal virtues. This is because the cardinal virtues can be known by my reason alone. So every person in every time, in every circumstance, has a vision of what it means to live well. And the reason that person has that vision is because they can know through their reason what it means to think well, or prudence, right reason and action. They know how to enjoy pleasures well, food, sex, and drink, temperance. They know what it means to give my neighbor her due, his due, that's justice, and they have a sense of what it means to be courageous or brave. They know what fortitude is. Right? So I can know this actually through reason alone, in every time, in every place, whether I heard of Jesus or I never had, I can know the cardinal virtues. And because cardinal virtues involve these inner-worldly activities, they're known by reason alone. Therefore, for the next few months, when we talk about this stuff, it's accessible to everyone. So we're going to start breaking these virtues down bit by bit. But just know, last time I'll say it, they're known by reason alone.